Hey everybody, welcome back to Ogre Speed Shop. So in this video we're going to finish up fixing the bumper and getting it mounted for good on the 69 Firebird. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so this is where I'm at right now. You can see this area got in a little bit tighter now. Still got a little bit to go on that. I think this needs to come back out a little bit on top. We'll see, maybe I can get it tucked in there a little bit better. This is the way it should look as far as the depth goes. Right now I just have it kind of semi-attached to the middle here so it can still be moved. But as you can see, this gap is closing and that gap is opening, which is what I want to happen. So let me get the other brackets on, see where they're at, but this definitely needs to come out. You see that, you can see that arch. Say hi, Dick. So that needs, this bow right here needs to still come out, and that'll help out a lot, because if you look right here, this is the shape it needs to be, kind of a gradual curve out to the outside here. So I need to make this do that, and that's kind of tough with that, you know, because it's the corner of the bumper there. But keep working on it and see what we can do. All right, so I decided to go ahead and start cutting. I got a little pie cut right there. I can already see a difference in that arch right there. So I think if I just bring that in, I'm gonna put it on the car obviously and fix and go from that. But putting that little slice in there brought everything back together and brought this arch back a little bit to be more of an arch this way rather than this way. So we'll see how that works. Like I showed you earlier, when I made a pie cut here, it just looks like it's a cut, but it's already been bent in a little bit. But what I got going on right now is I have the truck backed up in here for an anchor. I'm gonna pull that out and see where it lines up then. If this brings that arch back into play, then I'll probably just go ahead and weld it and call it a day. So I'm not going for perfection on this. I'm just going to make it fit so I have a bumper on there. Because the car is far from perfect and it's a long ways from being perfect, but you know, I just gotta have the bumper on there for one, for the license plate light, and two, just because it looks funny without a bumper. So I'm gonna make it work with what I have. So that's where we're at. So let's go ahead and crank this thing up and see what it does. And I don't know if I can do this with one hand or not. If I hold the strap and the phone at the same time. See how it's just nicely closing in on itself? So we're touching up here now, and it's flush. And if you look down here, that curve that used to be right here is actually looking pretty good now. It's definitely not curved in so much anymore. Might be able to do a little bit more on that to bring it out. And then I think I need to, on the end, on this piece on the other side, maybe pull it out still, because I think it's still pretty dinged up. But I think we're getting somewhere now. So yeah, I think this needs to come out a little bit, because you see the gap here, and it needs to go forward. So that's what we're working on. We're getting closer. I was hoping I didn't have to cut it, but hey, you know, that's what welders are for, right? So let's get this thing in. Maybe I can work on tucking it in better too, and I don't know if I want to go full chip foose on it or not, but not that I could ever be that good, but yeah, we're getting closer. So it's not, that gap is opening up now where it needs to be. Just need to bring this further in. So I think we need to spread that out on this side a little bit and we should be good. So I'm thinking that arch is somewhat back, but not quite where I want it yet. So I might cut that just a little bit wider. So cut that pie cut a little bit wider just to bring it out just a little bit more. Maybe I should just quit while I'm ahead. I don't know yet, but that's pretty good. I mean, I like the way that looks, and it goes good with the body line here along the back edge. I don't know. So much stuff. But I think that'll probably be good. Yep, that's what we're gonna go with. All right, so that's welded up now. There's no more pressure on it being pulled for the truck. So I'll go through and I'll weld the backside of it too and grind it all down smooth. And I still gotta pull this side out some. And that way this can come in further and it should fill that gap, because even that bracket down inside there that goes in here doesn't line up or doesn't go in far enough. So it needs to go in about another 3/4 of an inch. So, and that's where the gapping is right here. It's kind of screwed up because it's too narrow right now. So I need to pull this side out so I can slide in further. All right. So I got that welded there now. If you look at the gap, it's pretty even now. It gets a little tighter over on this corner here compared to this one. So I still think I need to do some work on this. I attempted to pull this bottom part off by attaching it to the wall over there. Only problem is that I started pulling the car off the jack stand, so I figured I better stop where I was at, but it did get it moved out to where it was at, or to a little bit better. This was actually out a little bit further, but I actually hit it with a hammer and pounded that corner back in. Now I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna sand the bumper down and smoothen it all out and try to take all the ripples and everything out of it that you can see. But I'm definitely getting a lot closer. So, you know, obviously I grind down the welds and smoothen those out. And I do want to get this in a little bit further than what it is, because that's a pretty big gap. So I'm gonna bend this piece out this way a little bit and then push this in. So yeah, still got some work to do, and I'm breathing heavy and saying so a lot, so I just did it again. But anyways, it's definitely getting closer to where I'm gonna be happy with it being on there. And yeah, that's where we're at right now. All right, so looking at where we're at on the bumper, I think what I need to do is, besides smoothing it out and all that stuff, is over here, if you look right here, see this bracket down inside here? See how it's further out towards the outside of the bumper? Whereas this one is kind of further in. I think what's keeping me from bringing this side in is that bracket is a little too wide this way. So what I'm going to do, take everything off again, and I'm going to bend that inward to reduce some of that. It's going to give me more room to bring this in this way too. It's not going to be run into the quarter panel as quick. So I guess where we're at on that one, still a little bit of crookedness right there at the very tip, but we're getting a lot closer. This is about to be a finished deal. And then I'll sand it, smooth it down, and throw some paint on it and install it for good. All right, so we can see we're getting closer. We've maxed out on the backside reach of this bolt, so I can't go back any further without it hitting. Like it's hitting the very backside of this hole. So might need to elongate that hole a little bit. Also this bracket here, so you can see we got a little bit more than a finger's width there. But down here, it's real tight. It's about a half a finger's width. So that's kind of where I want it to be. But I gotta be able to get that side in that way too. And it might just be because that bumper's still pretty bent. But we're getting closer. In the middle, I can get these middle bolts that bolt through the body in this area to line up either. So it might be raising this up. Put a jack under there, raising it up, because you can see it's kind of arched right there. So maybe I'll put some pressure on that to bring it up. And yeah, I don't know. Still tweaking, still playing with it. But we're getting closer. The other thing I really like about this side, even though it's not quite straight yet, is how tucked it is, how close it is to the body. I'd like to get the whole thing like that. Get it that close, but out, buddy. And over here, this side would need to be brought in a little bit, in and up a little bit by the looks of it. So like I said, a lot more playing around to go, but it's part of the fun, right? All right, so on the bumper, I've reached a point where I'm pretty happy with it. The only thing I need to do is this gap right here is still a little too big for my liking. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that bracket right there, because it's tight. It's all the way tightened down. I'm gonna take that bracket and I'm gonna cut it and narrow it or something. I'm gonna do something to make this gap here come in, because I've adjusted it to where that fits in there now, and it's level where I want to be. It's level with the body line up here. So the last thing I need to do is get to fit the same way all the way around. And I want about half of a finger right there. So that's what I'm shooting for the entire bumper. And so this is the last area that needs to be adjusted. So I'm gonna work on that. And I think just by cutting that bracket down inside there, I should be able to do that, accomplish that. So we'll see. Here's the bracket I was talking about. You see how it comes out of here and it attaches to the car over here. So what I'm gonna do is that one, I'm gonna elongate these holes and go move it that way. And two, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this and probably in this area right here and shorten it by about 1/2 inch. So that way it pulls that bracket in. So it's gonna be a little bit different than stock, but I'm trying to pull the bumper in a little bit further than normal and tuck it in there nice and tight. So that's what we're gonna do for now. All right, so I'm gonna be using my new tool that I bought. It's a Hercules brushless cutoff wheel or grinder. So let's try it out. All right, so I cut and welded that back together. It took about maybe 3/8 of an inch out of it. I think that'll probably be enough. I didn't want to do too much, but also, too much would be better because I can always space it out if I need to, but I think that'll probably bring it into where I want it to be. So I'm just gonna grind it down, make it look a little better, and then get on with it from there. I'm gonna continue using that, testing it out. So I got that ground down, looking pretty good. I'll put some paint on it and get it put back in the car. Try to elongate those holes a little bit over there. I'm gonna get the bracket put back on the bumper and then put the bumper back on the car. So let's get to it. All right, that got us a lot closer. So as you can see, we got about 1/2 a finger there, all the way across, all the way to here. It winds out right here. It might be because of the panel. It needs to be pushed out some, but overall, I'm pretty happy with that. I don't think anybody else is gonna really notice it unless they really come up on it. But I might be able to bring this in a little bit further. It's just, again, it's maxed out its holes back here. So I might have to bend that out a little bit and make it work and pull it in, but we'll see. I might just be good with that. All right, so after getting this up into position where it's parallel to the body line of the car, right here, that gapped that out a little bit more. So it's closer to what this is now. So it's about a little bit more than a finger. That's just a little bit right at a finger, but they're both level that way. And that is definitely where I'm happy with it. I can live with that being that close. So I think that's where we're gonna finish it. So now I'm gonna clean it up and get all the little dings and dents out of it, make it look as smooth as I can, and paint her black. All right, so I got that weld ground down on top. This needs a lot more metal finishing, so I'm gonna be doing some hammer and dollying on that to try to smoothen that all out. Same with over here. So that's basically what I'm doing with this right now, and I'll come back when I get most of it done and let you all see how it looks. All right, so this morning I've been busy just grinding down, smoothing out the metal for the bumper. Overall, it's getting a lot better. Like, it's just smoothing out pretty good. A few places I still got to work at, smoothing it out a little bit more. This one corner right here, I actually have to repair because it was a pretty good sized dent in there. And when I was punching it out, I actually punched through the bumper. So I'm going to do some welding there and a patch probably. But overall, it's starting to look really good. And just going to get the rest of it finished up so I can get some self-etching primer on it and then paint her gloss black. So she can go back on the car for good. All right, so I've been grinding away at this for probably about an hour and a half now. And not just taking the paint out, I've been moving, some metal around and grinding down high spots and whatnot. But yeah, all I got left is just a little bit around the middle to get the rest of the paint off, and she'll be ready for sanding and then primer and paint. So we're getting real close to getting this thing done. All right, so I got this palm sander out here, so I'm gonna start sanding it down to really smoothen it out and get the rest of these bumps and lumps and everything out of it, hopefully. And I'm not sure if I'm gonna have enough. The finest I have is 120, so we'll have to see how that works and go from there. All right, so I've been using the palm sander to sand this down and get a nice little finish on it here. A couple areas still gonna be dented and dinged, but still have some hammer marks on it. But I'm not gonna worry too much about it because I'm not building a show car, and everybody knows that about me. I build cars that run and drive and usually perform pretty well. And you know, the looks kind of go out the door sometimes, and that's just the way I am. But I welded this area up too where I punched through the hole, so I'm gonna grind that down and make it smooth. And then it'll be time for a primer and paint. All right, so I got that corner all finished and cleaned up and fixed. Still a little rough, but you know what? Because nobody's gonna notice. It's gonna be painted over. We'll put a couple layers of primer on it to kind of help fill in some of those holes, some of those areas. So yeah, this is where it's gonna be. And so now it's gonna be, gotta get some more paint, the old paint off, and it'll be ready for new. All right, so the last thing I'm gonna do is I wanna clean up the inside of the bumper too. Just gonna wire wheel it and then get all the big chunks off, and then from that point I'm just gonna spray with some good old Rust-Oleum rust reformer. That should be good enough to protect it. So that's what I'm gonna do. All right, so we got it all rust reformed. Got some of that stuff on there. It's just drying right now. So that'll take care of protecting the bottom side of it. So now I think I gotta run over to Hobo Freight and pick up some sawhorses so I can paint this. So I don't want to paint it on these tables. That'll be the next thing. All right, so it's time to paint this thing. So I got it all wiped down. I got the bolts set up. So I'm gonna spray those as well. So the first thing I'm gonna start with is the etching primer. And then I'm going to move on to black paint after that. All right, so I got the self-etching primer on there now. Let that set up for a couple hours, and then I'll come back and I got a couple of different things. I got this high gloss 2x, which is paint and primer. And this high performance enamel, which is just gloss black, it's not high gloss. I think I'm gonna try the high gloss on the 2X and see how that works. So that's gonna be the color of it. Okay, so it looks like the etching primer is dry. So I'm gonna go ahead and spray the first coat of black on it. Yeah, it's not even tacky at all. So I think it's time for some black. All right, so we got a coat of black on there. I'm gonna let that cure overnight. See how it does in the morning, how it looks in the morning. And then if it looks good enough, then we will send it and put it on the car. All right, so this is the finished product. As you can see, she's fully painted. I had to touch up a couple areas where it was sitting on this overnight, but so now it's all mostly straight. At least it'll be a good 10-footer, I think. All right, now here's the finished product. All in the car. I like it. I think it's definitely a little better for them. Oh, I don't know, 10 feet. Never noticed. Check out this transformation over the last 7 years. Let's complete this video on getting the bumper fixed, painted, and mounted back on the car for good. So if you like this video, go ahead and leave a like down there. Leave me a comment, let me know what I can do better. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and I appreciate you making it this far. So if you made it this far, you get to see the complete transformation from the time before I even had the car, before I bought the car, or traded the car, I should say, till now. So appreciate you watching, and until next time, I will see y'all later.